It's fair to say the revelations of the gross scale of corruption and $15 billion that has flowed to criminal organisations via the big build, I think has rocked everybody in this state. And whoever you actually vote for, the idea that this much money could go missing, it's like $3,000 for every adult Victorian or $5,000 for every household. Like if we were all held up at gunpoint and robbed of that amount of money, we'd be so angry. And yet that is effectively what has happened. And it shakes your confidence in the institutions that govern us. Well, we are going to have an election late this year in November, which is not that far away. The alternative premier, the leader of the opposition, is Jess Wilson. She joins us now. Jess, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. Thank you for having me in.
What is the future of the big build now? We've still got the North East Link and potentially the suburban rail loop. If you're in charge in a few months' time, will you press ahead with them?
Well, the North East Link is a project that is well underway, but, what we've seen in these revelations over the past 24 hours is the fact that the big build really kicked off the big issues with the CFMEU in this country, and it is essentially where the rot began in this state. What Jeffrey Watson reported yesterday and his evidence before the inquiry highlighted was that this government didn't only know that this was happening, but they turned a blind eye to it. And when we're talking about a minimum of $15 billion of taxpayer money going into the pockets of bikies, into organised crime figures, that means that money isn't going into the essential services that Victorians need.
Well, that's right. Whether it's police force, whether it's health, whether it's education, I mean, they could all do with more money, and that money's now not there. Well, okay, let's say you're in charge. What do? Do you call a royal commission into the whole thing, or do you ban the CFMEU as a union from participating? What would you do?
Well, I've been very clear that if I was the leader of the state today, if I was the premier, I would establish a royal commission into CFMEU misconduct on big build sites. That is my commitment to Victorians. We will undertake that Royal Commission when we form government in November, because this goes to the very heart of how taxpayer money is respected in this state. Now, we know that these projects, whether it's the Metro Tunnel, whether it's the Westgate Tunnel, whether it's the North East Link, have been mismanaged by the government. $50 billion of cost blowouts, delays time and time again. But the revelations that money on these projects, taxpayer money, is going to fund corruption in this state is appalling.
Yeah, see, I can cop, with the Westgate Tunnel when they found that there was contaminated soil and, no one foresaw that. I mean, that, you can debate about whose fault that was, but you can sort of accept that sometimes unexpected things happen on big projects. That I get. But what I can't get is the connivance, the knowledge that money is being siphoned off, it is going to criminal gangs, and it's all paid for by the grateful taxpayer. Is there any chance we can get the money back? I mean, can we go after the CFMEU or, the bikies, or is it just gone?
Well, this is organised crime. This is bikies. These are criminals at the end of the day. These are the executives of the CFMEU. And it saddens me to think that the good people working on these sites, the tradies on there, never want them to be caught up in this. This is the organised crime figures. This is the bikies. This is the criminal element. But unfortunately, the criminal element has been allowed to flourish under this government. And the Premier is failing to answer. I mean, the Premier didn't even stand up yesterday to answer questions. She's failing to answer what the government did and why the government hasn't taken action when it's been clear that the government was aware of this happening. So we need to ensure we can get to the bottom of this, Tom, but also look at options of clawing back this money on behalf of Victorian taxpayers.
Yeah, well, good luck with that if it's already gone into the pockets of organised crime. What about, the CFMEU for over a year now has been in administration. It's run by different people than it used to be run by. Do you think that's made any difference yet, or is it exactly the same organisation it already was?
Well, I think what we've seen revealed in this report and by, an eminent integrity expert, Jeffrey Watson, is that it hasn't been cleaned up, that this is continuing to happen. I mean, I think Victorians would be rightly appalled by some of the reports in this, the fact that it's essentially become a criminal syndicate, that we've got drugs being peddled on big build sites, government construction sites are essentially being used for drug distribution. It's appalling. The fact that we're seeing strippers brought onto these sites.
Well, the fact that some female workers are being forced or paid to strip for their male colleagues. I mean, just stuff that is...
It's disgusting.
It's tawdry, it's disgusting.
It's disgusting. And it's happening. It's happening because this government, the Labor government for a decade, and the Premier is failing to do anything about it. And nothing could speak to that more than the Premier's failure yesterday to stand up and to answer questions, but she chose to be in hiding instead.
Well, she is going to be part of a press conference outside the Royal Children's Hospital in about 20 minutes' time, and we'll bring you that live. Let's say you do have you win government, you have a Royal Commission, in a year or so it reports and it recommends deregistering the CFMEU. Would you go down that path like we did with the old Builders Labourers Federation?
Look, we want to undertake this Royal Commission because we want to get to the bottom of what has gone so wrong in this state, what is so rotten when it comes to government construction sites essentially funneling corruption and organised crime in this state. We'll take those recommendations at the time and we'll look at them and we'll ensure that we act to clean up these sites. I know Queensland is looking at this at the moment. They've obviously got their inquiry underway. They haven't yet made any decisions about deregistering the CFMEU because they think it's an important way to have this inquiry to look at how it can be cleaned up. And as I said before, there are so many tradies, there are so many people working on these sites who are good people. We're talking about the top, the top echelon here, which are the bikies, the gang leaders, the underworld. That's who we're talking about, and we need to stamp that out to ensure that we have safe building sites and we're actually getting value for taxpayers.
Now, we'll take some calls shortly. If you'd like to ask Jess Wilson, Leader of the Opposition, a question, 133693. A couple of other issues. There's going to be a noisy, potentially large protest late this afternoon, 5 o'clock in front of Flinders Street Station. An equivalent protest against the visit to Australia by Israeli President Isaac Herzog turned pretty violent a couple of days ago.
Yes.
Do you think this one will be violent here this afternoon?
I'm really worried about what we're going to see on the streets of Melbourne this afternoon, Tom. I'm looking forward to meeting President Herzog later today at a state function and then speaking at a Jewish event later today. But unfortunately, because we have had week in, week out protests that have seen escalating violence on our streets, it's almost been normalised here in Melbourne and Victoria. And I'm really worried that the Premier has failed to stamp this out over the past 2 years, but also has failed to give police the powers they need to actually manage this. And we saw in New South Wales, Premier Minns, really stand up and say, no, I back our police. They have the powers for a reason, and we don't have those powers here in Victoria.
Well, one of those big powers they have in New South Wales is, of course, the protest permit system. Now, you don't need a permit to have a protest here. Would you change that if you're elected in November?
Yes, we will introduce a registration system for permits, which will allow Victoria Police to manage these protests better, particularly for people who want to come and protest certain issues and want to work with local police to make sure that is done in a way that is responsible, that doesn't impact people's daily lives. And I will always defend the right to free speech, Tom. But what we're seeing here in Victoria is escalating violence, hate speech, and that steps outside what should be considered free speech and the ability to protest week in, week out when you are impacting other people's lives and businesses' ability to get on and actually open their doors.
Your former Deputy Leader, Sam Groth, is, after less than 3 years, decided to retire from politics. Were you disappointed when he couldn't just stay in at least till June to avoid a by-election in Nepean?
Look, I'm disappointed that Sam's decided to leave, but I understand the reasons why. And I've spoken before on this show around why he's decided to step away and the interests of his family. But I'm excited about the opportunity to get down to Nepean, to listen to the voters and to earn their trust. This is the next step in changing the government in November this year. What I know from talking to Victorians is they think Victoria is headed in the wrong direction, and this will ensure that we are listening to the people of Nepean and outlining our plans and our vision for Victoria.
Do you have a candidate yet?
We have a number of people putting up their hand, and the party process is underway and should be sorted in the next few weeks.
Finally, you worried about the recent opinion polls? These are national polls, but show that One Nation is the second most popular party in Australia.
Look, I'm not, because I spend day in, day out talking and listening to Victorians. And as I said, I know that they think that this government has lost touch with what they need and what they're looking for. They know that this state is headed in the wrong direction. And My job is to outline a vision for Victoria, our plan to improve this state, to make Victoria a place where people want to live, want to invest, want to raise their family. And the only way to change the government, Tom, is to vote for the Liberal or National parties. That's the reality. And I know that Victorians know that, and we're going to look forward to working with them over the months ahead about outlining our plans and giving them a choice to vote for us in November.